But if we all become crybabies about what a political party is doing, I think then that's a wrong thing to do. People need to take actions on their own. In a democracy, it's for the people, by the people. So, there you go. When I say power has power, which means if you work on yourself, if you spend a considerable amount of time in developing an understanding, in developing a thinking, a way of thinking, I think that is power. I think that could influence, that could bring in change, that could bring in some sort of a creation which could lead to making, some sort of a anti-establishment. For if you start to think on your own and you have no, let's say, evil intentions, to manipulate people into believing something or the other, I think you can wake up people. You can pass this message to others, and then that message is passed to others, and slowly and steadily we have a society where people think on their own, where they're not manipulated or influenced by what the media or what people in power are, trying to, people in power trying to make something that is not right. People are always so boring when they band together. You have to be alone to develop the idiosyncrasies that make a man interesting. This is not what I said, this is what Andy Warhol said. I'll put a photo of him over here. So, why do I think that groups can be unhealthy for you? Now, I'm not talking about all the groups that are out there or any particular group. I'm just saying that if you got to learn to think on your own, and that can't happen when you're part of a group. It's highly unlikely that if you're always a part of a group that you can develop to think on your own. Now, to counter that argument, I want to say that yes, you can. You can be a part of a group, and then once you understand that you have a thought of your own, that you can think on your own, and that is much richer, that is much more, and that is much more, that has much more clarity, that has much more your own individual experience accounted. I think in today's world, think about it. If we take a look at the political rallies that happen in India, there are many cases of herd mentality that can easily be found on internet. So that's an example what being a part of a group, being associated to an ideology that perhaps you don't even understand. Now, there comes a question: how many people in the world think on their own about something, or question things? Most of them prefer to accept what can be easily understood. Whatever in the world is easily accessible is whatever in the world is easy people want that. Um, if um, if there is some sort of utilization of your own thinking, then problems start to appear. Life becomes a lot problematic when you start to think and think critically about something. It's a pain in the ass. Jokes apart, I think that it's high time that people start to think on their own about things that they're associated with. I mean, the questions like why the color of the sky is blue and why the color of leaves green. I think these are basic questions and fundamental questions that everyone should ask. Everyone should ask themselves, and or I think these questions have these are questions that make us realize the fundamental nature of the world, of whatever we are surrounded by. We must understand what we are surrounded by, and if we don't have the curiosity to understand what we are surrounded by, what we have, what is out there, I think then it's a boring world, as Andy Warhol said. But he talked about groups, and this today's topic is about group, and I have a tendency to go off the topic a lot of times, and I think that's not a good thing. So I'm going to try to just be very to be very to focus all of my attention on the topic and not go with the flow. I'm sorry. So yes. So the first thing that I want to talk about is lack of individuality that can be seen in when you're a part of a group. In order to become an individual, in order to develop the insight and thinking that's required to make the right decisions in life, or to be able to make decisions in life, you've got to choose the road less traveled. You got to choose a path that is not followed by the masses, rather that has been followed by individuals. And why follow? You don't have to follow. You got to make your own path. And once you are on it, I can assure you there's going to be a lot of difficulties. There's going to be a lot of the path is not easy. I mean, if you start to think on your own and you develop certain ideas about certain things, and it starts with being wrong about things. So, and then once you're wrong about things, and then at the same time you'd be thinking, oh, maybe for so long you thought this to be right, and now it's all of a sudden it's wrong. Now there comes the self-contradictory nature that people have. Now, not many of us realize that. It's not a hypocritical thing. It's not something that's hypocritical. It's rather contradiction of ideas in your own head. It's like black and white. If you are able to contradict yourself, if you are able to argue with your own thoughts, I think then it's just give me one sec. One of the benefits of self-contradictory nature is that you have the chance to challenge your own thoughts. You have the chance to question your thinking. It could be about morality. It could be about something that you have an instinct that it's not just, it's not right. And then, but the mainstream, the media, or whatever it is, it tells you that it's right, or the media tells you that it showcases the it showcases that thing which is not right to be right, and you it it wants you to accept it as it is. History teaches us history teaches us that if you question power, you know you're in a bad place, that you could land in a bad place. But now times have changed. But as time has changed, I think people are utilizing this power of questioning in a wrong way. In order to bring in change in society, to help society be better, it does not have to start by challenging the ones in power. It rather has to be started by individuals trying to do better in their life, trying to collect the resources that they require in order to bring change in society, rather than shouting and screaming at the ones in power. I think that's not the right way to go about it. The people in power, either it was because of they took birth in in places in or in a family that was already powerful, or there was someone who started from rags and now was to riches. And um, people like to be associated with a story and hardship, something that influences them, something that resonates with them, rather than something that that people don't like. Hierarchical power. People don't like power that comes as a part of a lineage. Now, it can be seen in the Bollywood industry, where now the audience has started to shift, and the mindset of the audience is not to like stars, like star kids because they're kids of stars. They choose to watch films that they resonate with. It does not have to be a star kids, you know. So I think, yes, now there is an eye opening in that in this in India, where people are starting to realize that if you get work because you actually worked hard at something, that because you fought for it, because you always wanted to be, let's say, an actor or a director or an editor. And now if these people who have always worked hard to be in the places that they have finally reached and achieved their goals, people are connected with that stories. Now that's a shift in mindset that I have observed in people, which is, I think, great, which is tremendous. But still, power resides in the hands of people. It's hierarchical power. It's the power of lineage. It's the power of family that exists in Bollywood, which needs to change. People who deserve opportunity should be given opportunities. Now, it's not just in Bollywood. It's also seen in politics. In order for now, I don't want to talk about what the mass thinks. I think individuals who are able to think on their own know where the power should reside. Right now in the country, there's no opponent that could actually challenge the ones in power. There is no such opponent that is there who is credible enough, or if not credible, who 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 has the political sense to run a country. And the ones in power are actually doing something. They are doing things. They're taking actions, and that's politics. The term, the definition of politics, let me just Google it. Just give me 1 second. I want to read the precise definition of politics so that it's the activities associated with the governance of a country or area, especially the debate between parties having power, activities aimed at improving someone's status or increasing power within an organization. Now, I don't want, there's already herd mentality outside. Now, I think people should rather, if, let's say, if somebody wants change in the country, political change, I think once they realize that, they should spend considerable amount of time of their own in order to, let's say, learn or understand how it works and do the changes that they need, or try hard in progressing themselves, in trying to be so much better at what they do that they could bring in some form of a change in the society that they're living in. But if we all become crybabies about what a political party is doing, I think then that's a wrong thing to do. People need to take actions on their own. In a democracy, it's for the people, by the people. So, there you go. Okay, so I want to talk about an influential individual who has the power, who has the mind to bring, who has the mind and who has his own thinking, versus a weak individual, weak, vulnerable individual who can't think of their own, who can't think on their own. Now, what happens when these two people collide? A weak, vulnerable mind versus an influential mind. Of course, the influential mind always would be able to, if in a negative way, manipulate, if in a positive way, persuade this mind into believing, let's say, about their ideologies, about whatever they want to do, the kind of changes they want to bring, the things that they want to do, or whatever it is. The influential person, the person who is thinking on their own, has always more power in comparison with a person who is not thinking on their own. Now, this is what happens when, and then there's surrender of power, and then because you're avoiding to think on your own, because you like being a part of a community, you like being social, and you like that you don't have to think on your own, things are getting done. There's a public meaning to everything. Private meaning does not exist anymore in this world. What happens then? Loss of creativity, loss of individuality, and loss of existence. What kind of existence is it if you don't understand what you're surrounded by, or if you don't question the things that are harming you, or if you just follow a race where you were shown hopes and pictures that are happy and a utopia, actually. But the more we follow, the more we become followers of something, the more we're trapped in the clutches of influential minds, I think, um, of power, fame, and money. Now, I really think money has a lot of power. There's no doubt about that. There's power, and power has power. Um, like, for example, I want to say, when I say power has power, which means if you work on yourself, if you spend a considerable amount of time in developing an understanding, in developing a thinking, a way of thinking, I think that is power. I think that could influence, that could bring in change, that could bring in some sort of a creation which could lead to making, some sort of a anti-establishment. The message is for people to be able to think on their own and not look for the easy way to understand or to engage themselves in something. Once you have developed a way of thinking, I think that not just solves the problems that you're surrounded by, but it also makes this path for others to wake them up. You gotta, if you start to think on your own, and you have no, let's say, evil intentions, to manipulate people into believing something or the other, I think you can wake up people. You can pass this message to others, and then that message is passed to others, and slowly and steadily we have a society where people think on their own, where they're not manipulated or influenced by what the media or what people in power are, trying to, people in power trying to make something that is not right. And if people could question that, I think there'll be a great time to live in, where people are coming up with ideas and ideologies and whatnot. I think that'll be great. I'd like to live in that world where people are thinking on their own, and where trends doesn't mean where a trend doesn't have much power over people, where people are busy in creating their own shit. I think that's a beautiful world to live in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think people are waking up to that. Some people, at least. Yeah. So do not be afraid of the difficulty that is going to challenge you once you start to think on your own. And a lot of problems will arise, and that's the byproduct of you starting to think on your own, because the world has a lot of problems. And now you can't solve every problem, but you can solve your problems. You can, before taking any action, if you're, let's say, a lot aggressive, if you think before the impact of your aggression in the place around you or wherever you are, I think you'll feel a lot better. So that's what happens when you're thinking. You're always at an advantage when you're thinking on your own. But when you're a part of a group, you're so attuned to the thinking of others, of people, and then you have, in order to be accepted by people, you've got to give in into that group, into that ideology, into that group of people. Now what that leads to is stress and anxiety, a pressure, because you conformed to that group. And now when you feel some sort of, when you feel that perhaps that there is, let's say, more, I think then it becomes problematic. That's why I said, when you start thinking on your own, it's going to be problematic. But giving into somebody else's belief system, I think that's no way to live, really. So people can actually start to think. How? So there are a couple of ways, I think. First is look at the sky. Really, I'm not even joking. Just look at the sky, and I think look at it for a considerable amount of time and consistently. You'll know what I'm talking about. Look at the grass, and then read books. Read books, an account of life that you thought, would not surprise you. I think it would surprise you a little bit. And it'll give you this insight. So reading books has this magical thing to it, that once you read something, your brain so everything that you read is stored, I think, somewhere in your subconscious. Now, although I can't prove it, and I'm not saying I want to prove it, but I think everything we read, we look at, we see, it's stored somewhere at the back of the head, and it could come in a snap back at you if you really want it to. But that doesn't happen in exams, unfortunately. When I try to think of something what I read, I can't think of it. So that's bad. The subconscious should always work when we're giving our exams. It should always work then. But yes, there are ways with which you can remember things that you feel that your memory has no place for. I mean, memory is actually a funny thing. Sometimes you try to forget something so bad, but it always stays at your head. And then you want this one thing. You want this one little memory to come back to you, and it just vanishes and it can't come back. Memory plays tricks. So I can assure you that once you leave a group, or once you start to think on your own, the way you live your life will change, which means the way you dress, the way you walk, the way you look, the way you purchase things, the way you drive. I'm talking about everything. Everything changes once you're aware, once you're more observant, once you're noticing the intricacies. I can't even say it. Once you can observe and notice things that are outside, and it's such a beautiful experience to have that experience, to have that sort of a vision, to be able to guess what the person is thinking about. So those are the benefits. Now if they persuade you, if you like these reasons, I think you should think on your own. Or you should okay, it's a lot for today, I think. I'll see you in the next video, that is tomorrow. So this is day 5 of daily making a video. Alright, okay, see you tomorrow.